Hello everyone, welcome back to the Royville movie house. We've just stepped out of the theater, all my popcorn is done, so it looks like it's time to review our latest film.
This one was a good one from the AFI list. Annie Hall, directed and written by Woody Allen, 1977.
Yeah, it was a good one from the list.
Would you just let me get through all this?
All right, well, should we introduce the individual that saw the movie with us?
Do we have to?
This is your idea. I didn't buy him a ticket.
Joining us is my son, John.
Say hello, John.
Hi.
All right. So John will be putting his 2 cents worth in when we actually get to the point in the movie where we talk about what Steve just said.
All right.
Annie Hall was released in 1977. As I said, it was directed by Woody Allen. Actually written by Woody Allen and Marshall Brickman. The cast is Woody Allen, starring Woody Allen, as Alvy Singer, Diane Keaton as Annie Hall, Tony Roberts as Rob, Carol Kane as Allison, Paul Simon as Tony Lacey, Shelley Duvall as Pam, Janet Margolin as Robin, Christopher Walken as Dwayne Hall, Colleen Dewhurst as Mom Hall, Helen Ludlam as Granny Hall, Donald Symington, I really thought I practiced that. I didn't do a very good job, as Dad Hall, Mordecai Laudner as Alvy's dad, Joan Newman as Alvy's mom. The movie won 4 Oscars. Won 4 Oscars.
Do you know what it won for?
Yes. Best Picture. Best Leading Actress.
Okay.
Which would be Diane Keaton.
Right. Not Woody Allen. Got it.
Best Director is Woody Allen. Now, he might be a fantastic director. Best Screenplay for a production directly for the screen. So, not an adaptation.
Okay.
So that's all the stuff that we usually put at the beginning of our talks about movies. But with Annie Hall, I decided to take things a little bit differently than some of the other stuff that we've done in the past. Including those movies that starred or were written by or were directed by people who were problematic. So this is my first time acknowledging the fact that Woody Allen is an extremely problematic figure. Woody Allen himself. And those of you who are too young to remember, who don't follow film history, in the 90s, it came out that Woody Allen and his longtime girlfriend, Mia Farrow, broke up because Mia Farrow found naked pictures of her 19-year-old daughter, adopted daughter, Soon Yi, at Woody Allen's apartment. Now, Soon Yi was an adult. However, we have no idea. Nobody has any idea how long the relationship had been going on before that, because she was only 19. So she was an adult almost 2 years, just a year, not sure where her birthday falls in that whole cycle. So Mia Farrow Mia Farrow and Woody Allen were never married. They never actually lived together on a permanent basis. They were just dating. But they did adopt 2 or 3 children together, so there was a custody battle after they broke up. During the custody battle...
That's weird.
A little odd, right? But during the custody battle, Dylan Farrow, Allen and Farrow's daughter, accused Allen of molesting her. This was an accusation that was dismissed by a professor of psychology, I believe, or an expert in child psychology, basically stating that her revelation sounded coach because it was a video that Mia Farrow released, and it had a lot of starts and stops. But we've since found out that victims of abuse of any sort tend to kind of sound like that at times because they're too young to really process what exactly was happening. So did it happen? Did it not happen? Don't know. Dylan Farrow has never, ever, ever faltered in her accusation of her adopted dad. So there's that. That's the big stuff. He casted 16-year-old Mariel Hemingway in his movie Manhattan about a May-December romance. She's 16 years old, and the love interest, who may or may not, because I've not seen Manhattan, been played by Woody Allen, was a much older man. And this is a theme that goes through a lot of Woody Allen's early works. So this is kind of a problematic thing.
Little bit.
After the movie came out, he... this part I hesitate in saying, but since it's kind of in a list, I'll leave it in. He invited her to go with him to Paris when she was 18 years old when the movie finally was released. Him being in his 40s, her being 18. Little icky. Granted, he waited till she was 18, but little icky. He dated Diane Keaton, and then dated Robin Keaton, her sister, and Dory Keaton, the other sister. Again, a little icky, but that's just... And during the custody battle that he was fighting with Mia Farrow, he actually was quoted as saying losing custody wouldn't be the worst thing that happened to him. That's the last bit on mine.
Alright, well, let's get back to the movie.
Well, no, that's okay. I just need to acknowledge the fact that we understand that Woody Allen is a problematic character. We understand why he's a problematic figure. And we need to acknowledge that in order to be able to talk about why a movie like Annie Hall is important to the overall history of cinema. So, there it is. We acknowledged it. I don't like Woody Allen as a person. If all of this is true, even if half of it's true, he just seems like an icky person. But I don't know him personally. No, I'm not going to even. He seems like an icky person. I'm not even going down that road. I'm not going to apologize for feeling icky about him. However, we also have to acknowledge why Annie Hall as a movie is important. He redefined the rom-com with Annie Hall. The picture itself is not so sunny. It's not so funny. It's more, I don't want to say gritty, but gritty. It's more real life. It's less haha and more you relate to it. Well, we don't, but we'll get to that. He uses the achronological storytelling technique that a lot of other rom-coms will use in retelling of a relationship when it's a retrospective.
And that means?
That means the story's not told in a linear fashion. It's not told beginning, middle, end. The main character, Alvy, is looking back on his relationship with Annie Hall. Actually, in fact, all of his relationships. And he's just telling it as it's coming to him in his recollection. So he talked about a situation where they're in the movies toward the end of their relationship, followed up directly by a scene with him and his second wife, followed directly by the situation where he met Annie. So it's told, it's not told in a linear fashion. It's told in a very Ellen fashion. How about that?
So very stream of consciousness, back and forth, all over the place.
Correct.
Okay.
He also utilized breaking the fourth wall quite a bit. There was a lot of absurdness in the way the story was told, like the subtitles of what they were really thinking when they were having the conversation, etc.
A part where there was a cartoon where he was a cartoon with the Wicked Witch or the Witch in...
Yeah, the Wicked
Snow
Witch
White.
and Snow White.
Snow White, okay.
Or a spoof of, yeah. He uses and draws upon, or appears to draw upon, his personal experiences to write his stories. Then
he's a prick.
We'll get to that.
It's a comment on the film character, not exactly Woody Allen.
He actually writes some pretty meaty roles for women. Annie Hall, although she spoke fast and all that, she was a pretty good role for a woman. And up until that point, up until the 70s, pretty much, it was good, fully realized characters for women. It was a little harder to come by. So he did do that. And Woody Allen's voice tends to be, when you think of New York, you think of somebody like Woody Allen. No, not a prick. You don't have to say it for the third time. But that neurotic...
When I think of New York, I don't think of Woody Allen, so...
No, it's okay. You don't have to, but Woody Allen's a part of that. Like, when you think back to how the city is portrayed in that movie, New York is pretty much a character. Like, he loves New York, and you can tell. They show the skyline a lot. It's just,
yeah.
He does a...
The two main places, Los Angeles and New York, are definitely characters in his mind.
Mm-hmm. Woody Allen's voice is also very fast-paced. The way that he writes his stuff, the way he writes his dialogue, is a very quick pace to it. If you think of, even though Woody Allen didn't write it, one of the movies that you can see Allen's influence in is When Harry Met Sally. Everything, all the dialogue is just, it's rapid fire. And especially in Annie Hall, where Annie talks fast because she's nervously talking to fill the silence. Because I don't know what that's like at all. Anyway, Woody Allen's influence is actually throughout the modern rom-com. When you think of a movie like My Best Friend's Wedding or...
High Fidelity.
Fidelity. You think of Chasing Amy. Especially those movies that have a really sharp wit.
Yeah, I mean, I get the cultural significance. The movie did not harken back, I guess, because these movies were made after Annie Hall, but I could definitely see where some of those elements were not taken from Annie Hall, but were kind of birthed in Annie Hall.
There's definitely, his voice runs all through modern rom-com. Even the really cheesy, sunny, happy fairy tale ones. Just, there's... Fortunate, unfortunate, he's not a good human being, but he wrote some very important pieces. So that needs to be acknowledged. That being acknowledged, do you want a synopsis?
I think probably a synopsis would probably be about all we would need for this movie, since it was kind of stream of consciousness.
That's fine. IMDb synopsis, one sentence. Neurotic New York comedian Alvy Singer falls in love with the ditzy Annie Hall.
And then they break up, and he wonders why.
Well, that's not on there, but that's Steve's edition.
Right.
Well, and
then they get back together again, and then he wonders why they break up later.
Right. I mean, that's basically the movie in a nutshell. There are various scenes. If Ellen wants to get into a couple of those, she can. But really, being a rom-com, to me, the individual scenes, and we've already talked that the flow of the movie is not as a standard, A, B, C story. So really going scene to scene doesn't
we don't
express
have to.
Really what the film is about.
We don't have to. However, there are 3 scenes that I'd just like to mention.
Okay.
Her driving. She drives like a maniac. She's not from New York. She's from small town Wisconsin and drives like a complete and total maniac and drives the messiest car that Alvy's ever been in. I don't know if that sounds familiar or not.
I'm not going to say anything.
So there's that. And there were some points in that scene where I kind of chuckled a little bit because it was funny. Parts of it were. Number 2, the scene that he's waiting in line with the guy reviewing a movie behind him. And he keeps talking to Annie about this guy being obnoxious. And it just makes me giggle a little bit because the whole time he's being obnoxious because he's being loud enough. The guy probably heard every word. And it's just one of those, he's a hypocrite and just a weasel. I don't know. Alvy, I don't think translates very well to 2020.
Okay, I can see that.
Third scene was the scene where they're both in therapy at the same time. There's a point in that scene where both therapists ask how many times a week they're having sex. And she says, oh, all the time, 3 times a week. And he says, hardly ever at all, maybe 3 times a week. So there are some points of humor that do make me chuckle, but overall, kind of with Steve, Alvy is really not very sympathetic.
No, I mean, most of the time while I was watching the film, why did we break up? I really want her back. I like her a lot. Why did we ever break up? And I just kept thinking, because you were a prick to her every scene we see you in. Like, just an asshole.
Frankly, this is a very unsympathetic character that we saw. Throughout the movie, I kind of thought he was basically Holden Caulfield from Catcher in the Rye. Whether you like the book or not, he's a very unsympathetic character.
And a phony.
Which is said in the movie. He's Holden Caulfield if he was put into a high-fidelity situation where he thinks
High Fidelity being the film with John Cusack.
Correct, yes. Or the show, whichever you want to go ahead and...
Or the book.
Or the book, yeah.
Put into a high-fidelity situation where he's thinking back to all of his time with these girls. The one thing that really solidified it for me was when him and Annie first met, and they're at her apartment drinking, and they're talking, and they're actually having this inner dialogue, and the entire time he's just thinking, oh my god, I wonder how she'd look naked. I wonder...
And she's wondering if she's smart enough for him.
Right,
yeah.
He's very, very unsympathetic towards her.
That's the scene, I just want to interject, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
That's the scene that we referred to earlier when we were talking about the structure of Annie Hall, where there were subtitles.
Right. And it's just like, he's a sex-driven man who really could care less about emotions. From what I could gather from all the different scenes with his ex-girlfriends, with Annie.
But
go ahead.
But it does make me think, though, because you say that about Catcher in the Rye, and there's a scene where they are breaking up, and they're splitting basically all of these books they have, and she asks, she gets a copy of Catcher in the Rye, and she's like, is this one yours? He did, okay.
Right, and I made
So that correlation, maybe it was more than just a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean... The book and this movie had 2 totally different premises. Because, Holden Caulfield was a teenager who got kicked out of private school. And this guy's a fully grown adult who can't keep it in his pants.
But
that's not exactly true.
Not exactly, but he keeps... He's
bad at relationships.
He's very bad at relationships, and I've personally think he just puts the physical over the emotional.
I think more to the fact he puts himself over the other person or even other people, because I think the only kind of genuine relationship that he has with anybody is his friend.
Oh,
and even that, Michael Brady.
Rob.
Yeah.
The character's
sorry,
name is
reminded me
Rob.
of Michael Brady.
It's okay. The guy who kept calling him Max. Max is a good name for you.
Don't call me Max.
So, I mean, that's the only seems to be the real, like, kind of relationship he has, and it's with one other character, and he's a male.
It's fair. That's fair enough. He does say that during one of his asides when he's breaking the fourth wall, he does actually say that, maybe this is what's happening. Maybe he's self-sabotaging because he doesn't feel like he's worthy of anybody. He doesn't feel like he's good enough for anything. And so he doesn't want to date anybody who would want to date him. Basically.
Right.
He does say that. And, that's kind of a crazy way to think about things, but that's the way it is. But getting as an aside, Jeff Goldblum has a 30-second scene in here in a party where he's calling his guru because he forgot his mantra. And
actually, this film had a lot of people in it where you're like, hey, it's that person.
Exactly.
Over and over again.
And they were super, super young.
It's true. Christopher Walken had a Christopher Walken weird scene.
Right.
Even though he was like 2, I don't know, 12, I don't know. He was a very young man. But he was, he has, those of you who know Christopher Walken and love his work, know that in every single movie that he is in, he has the scene. The scene where he is just over the top weird. And because he only had one scene in Annie Hall, he was over the top weird.
But after watching the film, it does make me wonder, though, how these people actually are in the film, in the real life of the film, how these people actually are. Because we assume, but it's pretty much, I think, blatantly obvious that the whole film is from Albie's perspective. So now it's Christopher Walken, we get it, understood. But was Christopher Walken was his character really that weird, or was it Albie's interpretation
certainly
of the memory of what happened?
Certainly.
That also makes me wonder about Paul Simon's character, who was from Los Angeles, and Albie has a very bad view of Los Angeles. And so was Paul Simon's character actually acting like that, or was that just Albie's memory with his, I'm going to say the term warped memory of those events?
To kind of clarify with Christopher Walken, with the scene that we're talking about, Woody Allen is talking to him, and Christopher Walken is talking about the urge to drive into incoming traffic as he's driving down the road. And then later on,
the very next scene,
the brother, Christopher Walken, is driving Annie and Woody Allen back
to the airport at breakneck speed.
Right.
Actually, I thought that was kind of funny.
That was really funny, but just to clarify, that was the Walken scene, and it could have been this guy's interpretation of the brother, but it could also just not be, and this guy's super weird. Who knows? But it does really make you wonder how much of this is really the main character's imagination and how much of it isn't.
Well, I mean, when I tell you a story when I get home from work, It's definitely told from my perspective.
Ellen was referring and pointing to myself, just so you guys know.
Well, it could be John, too. I tell him stories after I get home from work, too.
Oh, boy.
But you got to take all that sort of reporting with a grain of salt. It's told from my perspective. And I think that given the bookends of the movie, the framing device of the movie, with Alvy narrating and talking about a joke and comparing it to life, and then talking about a joke and comparing it to life at the end of the story as well, I think it is wholeheartedly implied that when he's telling the story, he's telling it certainly from his perspective, and he's trying to spin it. The whole movie is Alvy's spin on this whole relationship. And he's not doing a whole lot of introspective self-actualization. He's not looking inside to see how he can improve and where he went wrong.
Not at all.
What he's trying to do is to blame it on other people. And one of the minor characters that he talks to on the street, in his head, because I don't think that Alvy was actually stopping people on New York Street, asking them where things went wrong.
Yeah.
Pulling aside an officer on his horse and petting the horse.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's two scenes like that where he's just narrating, but talking out loud, and people who are passing him on the street are answering his questions as he's saying them, or he'll stop them and ask them questions. One of the ladies who passes him says something to the effect of, "You're doing the same thing every time. It's everybody else's fault. It's never your fault." And it's true.
But doesn't he just kind of dismiss her?
Oh, certainly. But it is said in the movie. I mean, it happens.
True, but
yeah.
but to make your argument valid,
Yeah.
I mean, he basically just dismisses this woman.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's not me. It's something that they're doing wrong. How did this happen?
Why did this happen to me? Who could have done this?
Yeah.
Or what could have done this? Or
Well, maybe it's because you're a prick.
just to give a little bit of context, we're kind of going all over the place, just like the movie. But Alvy is 40 years old. He's been married twice, both to very smart women. One was doing her doctoral thesis on some political influence in 20th century literature, which he dismissed. And she called him out on reducing her to a racial stereotype, which was kind of cool. And then his second wife was already a doctor and trying to get a foothold in the academic world. And he was trying to sabotage it, basically, by wanting to go in the closet and have sex with her at a very important party. So, and then his second wife leaves him. He meets Annie. The movie takes place. And he's not just retrospecting into his relationship with Annie. He retrospected a little bit into his relationship with Allison, who was his first wife, and Robin, who was his second wife. Just in order to maybe put into context that this is just not isolated behavior for Alvy. This is the same pattern 3 times over now, where the women left him.
Right.
And we kind of also see the beginnings of that in the beginning of the movie. He's talking about his early life in grade school and how he had these like urges in the classroom.
Yeah, he was he was an early bloomer, we'll just say.
He was, 6 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Was okay. And he kissed a girl in the middle of class. He got chastised for it, and then...
Was 6 years old or 6th grade?
6 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, it was 6 years old. And then through, like, another breaking of the fourth wall, here comes older Albie, and he's like,
It wasn't my fault.
It wasn't... I have feelings, too. You weren't about to ask me about that?
Right.
So, it wasn't even just with the wives. You just see the beginnings of this pattern behavior when he's a 6-year-old boy going all the way until he's a 40-year-old man.
So in talking about this, I'm beginning to think that maybe Annie Hall is a little bit more deep than I gave it credit for, even after watching it actually twice. Admittedly, we watched it twice. But I'm still not sure that I could watch it a third time. I don't know if I could. This is not a movie that I would stop on if I was flipping through there. However, I do got to give credit once again to Woody Allen's framing of both cities and really illustrating what he sees, what Alvy sees as the differences between the two. Because it takes place, there's technically 3 cities in it. Well, 2 cities in a small town.
Yeah, right.
But every place that he's in actually is framed very well. You know exactly where you're at, and you know exactly how Alvy feels about it. In New York, people are having normal conversations that are very intellectual. People are walking down the streets with their groceries, and they're having normal conversations in normal tones. Sometimes a little pretentious, but that's neither here nor there on that, because we can get into that a little later if you want. But Woody Allen tends to be pretentious, so this is normal for him. Whereas in L.A.,
you have Jeff Goldblum's talking about their mantras.
Yes. Well,
or 2 men talking about how somebody gives good meeting. Oh, that guy gives a good meeting. Yeah, I have a meeting with him tomorrow. Yeah, George had a meeting with him.
Yeah.
You know.
Everybody, Tony Lacey is the character that Paul Simon plays. He's dropping names. He does it in New York, too, when they first meet him, where he's like, yeah, we're going to go over to this place, and we're going to meet Jack and Angelica. Meaning Jack Nicholson and Angelica Houston. So, not a name dropping's happening with this character. So obviously he has a very low opinion of him because name droppers don't actually,
right.
Yeah. But this party is so weird and unreal. Like, this is not a party that anyone, even in 1977, would have walked into. I don't care what kind of money you have. You're not going to have 3 guys standing around talking about how he gives good meeting. You're not going to have Jeff Goldblum on the phone calling his guru to ask for his mantra. You're not going to have the owner of the house. Well, you might actually have the owner of the house dropping the names of the previous owners in LA. But Alvy also, he makes himself feel ill to the point that he can't even do the job that he's there to do. And then as soon as they release him from the job, he starts to feel better. They go to this party, and Tony Lacey actually, I think genuinely is interested in Annie Hall for a recording. I have a feeling that Alvy seems to think that it's all about Tony's attraction to Annie, and that he's going to take advantage of Annie. And he may have. We don't know what happened after they broke up the final time.
But seeing how the movie is framed as if it's from Alvy's memories and how much of a horn dog we know Alvy to be, it could just be that he was once again putting his ideas onto what was happening with 2 other people.
Correct. So basically, Annie Hall is not just the story of Annie Hall and Alvy Singer. It's a story of somebody who lives in and loves New York. And someone who wants to spread her wings out and leave New York. Not just to LA, but just to explore things. She's very young. Well, not young like we were talking about earlier, but she's in her probably mid-20s, I would guess. They
way
never
younger
really said. Yeah, way younger than Alvy. She's also always very insecure with Alvy about whether she's smart enough. You don't think I'm smart enough. She keeps saying that through the whole thing. Because he keeps suggesting that she take classes and all this stuff. And when she does, then he hates it.
Exactly. It's very interesting since he's very hypocritical, even in himself. One second, there was literally a scene where 1 second he's saying, oh, take these college classes. You'll get to meet new people. You get to meet professors. And then a second later, he's like, college is stupid.
Yeah, why take adult education classes? They're dumb.
Yeah, but I think that my dislike of this movie, I'm not saying I like it. Woody Allen's not my cup of tea. at all. And I'm not just saying that because of the intro to the show. I'm saying it because I don't get him. Like, his humor doesn't hit me right. And I'm not saying... There were scenes that I genuinely laughed at. The Christopher Walken thing. I laughed at that. I laughed at a couple of just random jokes, like the... See, I can't even say it now. I don't even know.
Okay.
I'm going to stop talking.
The one thing, not having experienced any of the other movies Woody Allen worked on, I mean, it was an enjoyable movie in my mind for different reasons. In a lot of movies you see today, you are supposed to like the main character to one extent or another. In this one, it is very obvious you're not supposed to. I know I made the connection between Catcher in the Rye and this movie, but it feels like I'm supposed to feel sorry for Holden in that book. In this case, I see another person acting the same exact way, and I'm supposed to not like him. And I really appreciate a movie that can do that.
Okay. I think we know how Steve feels about Alvy, but how does Steve feel about the story?
We did watch it twice. We had not recorded for a while, and I wanted a refresher. Watching it the second time, I actually was able to dive a little bit deeper into it. That's when I did realize, the first time I watched it, I didn't realize that it was basically his memories. So seeing it from that light, it does give me an appreciation for the movie a lot more than I did the first time I saw it. However, like Ellen said, it wasn't my cup of tea. I would not stop and watch this again, probably. I will probably never see it again. I can respect some of the choices in the film. I do believe that the film has some merit. However, it's not a film that I really enjoyed. And if this is kind of the idea of the Woody Allen film, this is probably the only one I will ever see. It's just, like Ellen said, it's not my cup of tea. I didn't like the main character. I understand the choices that were made for the character and for the other characters as well. I think I understand kind of where Woody Allen was coming from. I just didn't really care so much for the film. Not my thing.
Fair enough.
I do have to say, this is probably going to be on my list of watching only once. I only watched it the first time before this recording, but this is definitely on my list of only watching the movie once.
One and done.
That's fair enough. I will say that in college, my freshman year, I was in a Woody Allen play called Don't Drink the Water, and it was much more slapsticky and just funny. However, that was way early in his writing career. It was a play that he wrote. It wasn't a screenplay he wrote. So I will say that some of the stuff that I've seen, some scenes, whatever, I've seen some stuff that I find funny, but yeah, he's just overall not my cup of tea. And I like good movies. I like deep movies. I like smart movies. It's not anything to do with that. But at the same time, I also don't like to feel as though the movie is talking to me as though I'm an idiot. And there were moments in Annie Hall where I kind of felt that way.
Yeah, some of the writing, I just felt like I wasn't smart enough to get what he was saying. Or maybe I wasn't around then, or at least cognizant then. 77, I guess I was around. I'm an old man. But I definitely wasn't really cognizant of everything going on around me at that time. However, just all of, not so much name drop, because he has a character that name drops, but it seems like he was almost, like the writing was like, look, audience, see how smart I am.
Yeah.
He was a
all of
very
this
pretentious writer, a very pretentious character.
The only character in the whole thing that I didn't find pretentious was Annie Hall. Like, she never really, I mean, even when she got to be pretentious, she really wasn't. It was more trying to fight him off because she didn't want to marry him.
Which is interesting because it's from his perspective. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is pretentious in the film but Annie Hall.
Until she was. And that's when she turned him
again,
down.
So many layers in this film that I really don't care for.
I will say, though, I did like, I don't know why it occurred to me, but the whole, like, nod to craziness in California when his friend got in the convertible and put on, like, basically the radiation suit and dropped it. Okay, sorry.
Oh, the one thing that I wanted to mention that, not related to this conversation, with the movie, there was not a lot of music played in it.
It's true. There wasn't really a score.
There was, at different points, there were songs, but they were tied to the story. For example, Annie Hall sang at a nightclub. That was, like, one instance of the song. She sang it, then she was done with the gig. At another point, they were basically listening to the radio around Christmas, and so the Christmas songs are playing. So, it's very interesting to watch a movie that doesn't even have a soundtrack behind it. Because all you have to listen to is the ambient noise of the area and then the actors. So, in my opinion, it does,
it was pretty stark, actually. Once you pointed it out, that was all I could hear.
Right.
Or you could not hear.
Correct.
So, you kind of, in a way, were forced to get sucked into the dialogue because there was nothing distracting from it.
That is true. That is very true. So, basically, despite the fact that Woody Allen is an icky person, we won't get back into it. Fun fact about his son Ronan. He actually wrote the New York Times article that very likely started the Me Too movement about Harry Weinstein. So, just a fun fact. But
okay,
that's the last little thing from my research. I think that now we come to the point where, Steve, does this movie belong on AFI's top 50?
I can understand why it is.
So, yes. Just you didn't like it.
I didn't care for it. But I can actually understand why the film is on the list because it is a lot deeper than I gave it credit for. And it does have a lot of reverberation to other films in cinema after it.
John.
So, there's a lot of historical background with this movie, and it did help pave the way for the modern rom-com that we know today. Despite all the things that I pointed out, on a more, I guess, literary platform, I don't feel this belongs in a top 50. Because there were a lot of points where it felt like Woody Allen was ego-stroking his own work. You could see it with the character. You could see it with how he was acting. Honestly, there are other movies that are within the genre of rom-com that I felt should have taken this place.
Are within the genre of rom-com, but what created the genre?
Yes, that's the thing. This is the overall. I'm not going to I'm going to disagree with you, but I'm not going to try to change your mind. You can have your own opinion.
Yeah,
I am going to disagree with you.
It is allowed for this one thing.
For only this one thing.
And like I said, I did acknowledge the importance of the movie, but again, it gets a little much when Woody Allen is throwing in your face like, I am the greatest writer and most intelligent writer there is.
Oh, just you wait. Oh, honey.
And I bet there are other movies like that. But
Number one is exactly like
but
that.
only having watched this movie in this list,
All right.
that is what I think.
All right. So I believe that Annie Hall belongs on the list of the top 100 movies, even though I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Because I am a huge fan of rom-coms. So I tend to forgive a lot in the rom-com genre. I did not enjoy this movie as much as I thought I would. There were moments, but overall I did not like the movie. However, given that this specific movie and this specific structure of storytelling has reverberated throughout an entire genre, this is an important enough movie that it needs to be on this list.
All right.
And our next one, I'm going to take a deep breath because the name of this movie is incredibly long. Our next one is our next bad movie called The Incredibly Strange Creatures That Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies.
Yeah, that is a very long film title.
That's our next one.
That might even be longer than the actual film.
The film was really short, and I don't think Steve liked it very much.
Well, it was a bad movie, so...
But that's our next release, and after that, we'll make our announcements on what our next two movies are.
All right, well, it looks like they are lighting the lamps on the streets of Royville, so it looks like that is our time for the film Annie Hall. So until next time, everybody have a great night. If you like this, if you want to see Annie Hall and you have any comments, please put them in the comment section. If you would like to listen to more of these, please hit subscribe. We have quite a few, and they're going to be rolling out as we watch films. So, until next time, good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.